Hello, everybody. This is Irina, and welcome from 0 to 100 podcast. And here I'm with my guest, Silvia Carasel, who is a very interesting person and also a very close friend of mine. And we kind of bonded over the experience in the last year. So happy to chat more with her. Silvia is a project and marketing manager with a background in tech, education, and nonprofit. She worked at Google, where she led a brand and reputation projects, including AI, digital initiatives, and skills programs during the pandemic. She founded an NGO that supported over 1,500 educators during lockdown, and now is a Fulbright grantee in New York City. She's pursuing an MBA focusing on data, analytics, and AI. She's passionate about curiosity-driven learning and turning ideas into impact. So, hello, Silvia. How are you doing?
Hello, Irina, and thanks for having me. I'm excited and nervous at the same time.
Excited to have this chat together. Silvia and I have been friends for quite a bit, and we bonded over a bunch of things, going through very similar stuff in different situations. And as you know, you just sit down with your friends and find their life story. And I found hers to be quite inspiring because she had a couple of career transitions and very interesting ones. So I wanted to deep dive into it because I wanted to show people that it's possible to rebuild your life any direction that you want. And just because you start on a specific career, you don't have to be settled in that one. So you did pharmacy, and then you did tech, then you did Google, then you did Fulbright in the States. So your career path is absolutely exciting to me. And I wanted to ask you what made you make all these changes, and how did you know it was a good decision?
I used to introduce myself as a curious learner, and I'd say that I always tried to choose growth over comfort. I was always afraid that if I'm too comfortable, I'm not gonna learn and I'm not gonna grow. And I think that's why somehow I made so many changes. And I was thinking, and I have this belief that we have different seasons in life. And right now, I feel like I don't have other responsibilities. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. So I feel that that's the moment to take all those risky decisions. I don't know, change career, move to the US. And I think in a way I'm still looking for my ikigai, that concept, that you have to look for what brings value to the world, what makes you excited. I feel that I made peace with this idea of just seeing life as an experiment, and maybe we can talk more about it. And I don't know, to learn from everything that I'm doing, regardless of like the successes and the failures in my professional life. I feel like at the end of the day, if I've learned something and I became like a better person, that's a very good outcome, at least at this stage. And you asked me about pharmacy, and that was long ago. I mean, 10 years ago when I made that decision. And I'd say that I wanted somehow to make it easier for myself. It was a safe decision. And it was a moment in my life when I was still a child, I'd say. And I was also trying to people please maybe, and not only think about myself, but all the other people around me, family, friends. And I really love my family, and you know it. I mean, I'm right now in Romania because I also want to show my family that I'm still part of the story, that I'm still there. But I realized that whenever you have to make important decisions in life, it's good to pay attention who you talk to, if it makes sense. Sometimes you might not have the best advice from your family, and they will understand only when you present them the final outcome.
Yeah.
And they won't understand you when you are in the process. In my case, when I made a change and shifted from pharmacy to tech, that happened because I was also like doing a master's in Bucharest in management and IT, and that somehow was the moment when I decided to change something. But I had some people around me that supported me, and I'm very grateful because I had my partner, and I felt that he was the echo of my voice, the voice inside of me that I didn't pay attention to, that was screaming like, do something, make a change. So yeah, very philosophically, that was the story. And Google, because you mentioned about it, for me was the proof that you can make a change, you can reinvent yourself. While I was interviewing for Google, no one asked me why you decided to go in this professional direction. And I think that's good. I mean, they ask, but not in Romania, people are judgmental, and I don't want to judge Romania here, but they ask you, oh, but why do you want to do it? I mean, like you want to, they somehow ask you, but you feel that you want to justify yourself. I never experienced that with Google. I really felt that there was like part of the culture to somehow support these big changes that people want to do. And yeah, I think that was for for me the proof that, okay, in life we can really reinvent ourselves. The only thing is that we have to, trust that voice and just make the jump when it's the moment.
I wanted to add on top of that because I feel like you said two things that I think would be valuable to our listeners. You said that you like to frame life as an experiment, and I relate to this because I had this belief myself, because there was a point in my life where I started Vaughn, the startup, and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be in the trenches, might as well learn from it and think about this as a learning experience. And it made my life so much better and much more positive. So I wonder, how did you get that type of thinking, of mentality? Did you learn it from somewhere? Was it your own mindset? How did you get in contact with it? And also, like, the idea of you gotta surround yourself with people who are either better than you or working on the same things as you is also valuable. So I wanted to hear how you got to that conclusion, because in terms of like cultural and Eastern European, I like to emphasize for our listeners that generally it's more of a culture where it's like more community based, and you don't basically go in certain boxes or categories, which is nice, but at the same time there's also this pressure that you gotta achieve, or the success in life is being just a doctor or an engineer, working in pharmacy, or being a lawyer, general paths, having kids, getting married, and so on. So I'm curious, how would you get this mindset mentality?
So lately I came across this book, Tiny Experiments, and I totally recommend it to your listeners. And for me, I think we also attended together the launch. And I was also part of a cohort, Curiosity cohort it was called. And that cohort somehow experienced the learnings from the book before the launch. And I'd say for me that was a reminder of like how important it is to look at your life as an experiment. But I realized that I had that inside myself ever since I was a little girl, because my first 4 years of school, it wasn't the Romanian traditional school. I was doing step by step, which was a different kind of I'd say system. I think it was inspired from the US, but I'm not sure. But it was in Romanian. I studied with Romanian teachers, and we were following the curricula, but we were learning while playing, and we were looking at everything like an experiment. I never had grades in my 4 years of school, and that was somehow releasing the pressure of proving yourself or to the other. Teachers weren't comparing us, because we were like, you are good at what you are good, and that's great. You don't have to prove that you are the best in maths, science, whatever. That changed because in high school I felt all the pressure that comes from our educational system, and what I felt was that you are in a box and you have all these walls around you, and at least this is how I felt, that I want to break them. I think somehow me doing all the things after high school, trying all these things, going into pharma, then doing a lot of volunteering and working in NGOs, then doing Google, and now doing what I'm doing, I feel that was my way in which I was trying to build, to break these walls. But at one point, and I think this happened during this year while I was somehow exploring again the idea of experiments, that wait a minute, I'm the one who right now is just building these walls, and maybe I don't have to break anything. It's just me shifting the perception about how I want to live my life. And I think just by shifting the mindset, the way in which you experience all the things that you want to do, everything, it's so different now. The way I look at the thing, maybe I haven't changed so many things in terms of what I'm doing daily. Maybe I'm doing the same thing, but the way in which I look at those things, it's so different.
Well, I think a take from it, it's how formative your first years are, and especially how important education is, whether it's informal, whether it's formal, because it opens you up to a new possibility. So that takes me to the next question. Was there a particular moment in your career when you realized tech was the direction you wanted to go in? Is something that attracted you in particular, you were in pharmacy and then you had a switch to technology?
It's very important to mention that my high school program was focused on math and informatics. So I had some background. And also pharmacy itself, it's STEM. You study a lot of chemistry, physics. So I wasn't new to when it comes to science in general. But while I was studying for my bachelor degree, I was volunteering a lot, and I worked for several NGOs, and I worked closely with students from Polytechnica University. So somehow I was close to the field, and I always felt an outsider. I was somehow looking for a way in, I think. And the moment somehow that something changed, I mean, I knew that I wanted to make a change. I was looking for opportunities. But during my last year as a student, I also had an internship at a big tech company in Romania. I know it doesn't make too much sense, pharmacy and tech company, but I wasn't like coding or anything. I was helping them with some educational programs for students. So for me, it was a valuable experience there because I worked closely to different managers in the company and understood all the functions and everything that's happening in a tech company. And I remember that I was questioning a lot, what should I do next? And there was like a guy, he was in data engineering or something. I don't even remember his name, but we were like having lunch and we were discussing life, opportunities, I don't know, the future in general. And he somehow, at the end of the discussion, he looked at me and he said, "You are a smart girl and never in your life settle for something that's beneath you." And I was like, oh wow. I mean, that had somehow an echo. I never tried to be arrogant about it or anything, but I was like, okay, so maybe other people see in me things that I don't see. And maybe I should just do it, And while I was preparing for my final exam, because when you graduate from pharmacy, it's more complex, you have a lot of exams and things that you have to do. It's not just to finish the faculty. And I was also preparing for the exam for this master's that I wanted to get into at the computer science faculty. And I had support. I have to mention that I also had my partner. He's also an engineer and he was somehow my tutor because I was trying to learn for my final exam for pharmacy and finish with that and also try to get into this new program. But everything went well and I'm so grateful that I made that decision.
It's awesome. And it brings me to the next point. It's like the next stage of your career. You applied to a Fulbright program and basically you switch continents, not just countries, switch cultures. So I wonder how your experience has been in New York City, how it's shaped your view on business and tech. Would you recommend it? And what's your thought about it so far?
The reason why I wanted to come to the US was because I wanted somehow to experience this US ecosystem, innovation ecosystem from within. And I knew that you cannot experience it if you're not there, like in person, in the middle of the action. My program right now, it's focused like into business, AI, data, and it's great considering all the innovation that's happening in this domain. In New York itself, I'd say reshaped my mindset. People there, I'd say, are not that just smart, are very clear about their objectives. I think are driven, consistent. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say in Romania, we have this victimhood mindset. I'm not trying to judge in any sense because I really think that Romanians are great, but when we are together, we like to complain a lot. This is something that's changed. In the US, you can complain, of course, but somehow you have to own your things. You have to show that you really want to do something for yourself. This is how you gain the respect of other people. And I really like that. I mean, I think that's healthy to do for yourself. I think not only that, New York somehow pushed me to think about things at scale. And I was thinking that you have a coin with two sides. And for me, one is creativity and one is like having a system. And I think this is how I define New York. I mean, these are the learnings. And also in terms of like who I want to be as a person and as a professional there, I'd say New York can teach you to be free. That freedom that no one cares. You can do whatever you want, but no one cares to judge you. But also you can feel so small. Yeah, I hope it makes sense. But it's that you don't matter. You walk around and you are so small. But I think these two things are so great. You feel so free, but you can also, you have the opportunity to just heal your imposter syndrome. That idea that no one cares, that can be something so good that no one cares. It means that you can fail as much as you want and you won't be judged for that.
I think to your point, I feel like New York City ecosystem attracts one of the most hardworking and talented people from all over the place. And not just specifically in tech, like every industry. Also, it can be tough. It attracts a lot of resilient people, creative people, hardworking people. And I do agree. And it reminds me of this book. I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's called Extreme Ownership. So basically it talks about one of the values of like, owning to your actions, owning to your mistakes and doing accountability. I think in terms of like cultural perspectives, it matters in where you are from and where you are located. Definitely here year, I see more people owning their situation and that moment in given time. But yeah, I am curious to see how you're gonna think about San Francisco if you ever decide to experience that era. And then we can do this podcast and see the differences between West Coast and East Coast. So that brings me to another exciting subject that we talk about, and I know you're very passionate about it, AI. And I wanted to point this out to everybody, like, okay, eventually she switched to tech, but she didn't do that previously. And I would call her in the weekends and be like, hey, what's up? What are you up to? And she told me, oh, I'm building this tiny AI assistant that is gonna do for me this and that. And I'm using these programs to push it together. And also I taught myself how to code a bit and do these things here and there. And that is exciting because I feel like everybody right now needs to learn how to do prompt engineering and start doing all of that. Okay, not everybody needs to build an AI to have as a personal assistant, even though I think it's a great idea. So before ChatGPT, you launched the Google AI initiative in Romania. What was that like? How did you navigate that project? What were some key challenges in making AI more accessible and understood by the public? Because probably now is a bit more popular, but back then when I studied it, it was just like a beautiful dream.
You mentioned the project that I worked on at Google, and that's very close to my heart. And somehow the goal of the project was demystify AI and somehow build trust around it. Mostly in Romania, where you know that in terms of like digital skills and digitalization, we are still working on it. And though you have like all the startups and businesses that embraced it, in terms of like the general society, we have like a lot of room to grow. I worked on this project, and my role was somehow to position Google not only as this tech leader, but also a growth partner, all for the government, for SMBs, for startups, for educational initiatives, and we were promoting this AI first responsible adoption. One of the priorities was to create this dialogue, and we were talking about the AI economic report. We launched a report, and we were discussing all the challenges that come with the AI, and all the AI opportunity initiative was as a response all these challenges that we were discussing about. And from there we also had like a google.org grant for NGOs that were working at this intersection of tech and impact education. And we were also launching an AI skilling program, and I think that's very important because we were addressing all these challenges, considering how important it is to educate the general society, the workforce, students, people from businesses. And it's very important to mention this, and that was a core belief behind that project, and also something that resonated. AI for sure, it's something very innovative. We don't have to debate about it, and it's already impacting the society. But the way in which this impact can become positive if you prepare people for it.
Okay.
And that's why somehow all these efforts were considering education. I mean, somehow everything that we did was like build digital skills, to build the AI literacy for students, entrepreneurs, universities, business leaders, everyone. Because you have to prepare the society for all that's coming. I'm very grateful that I managed that program because I felt that I somehow moved the needle in the right direction. And I'm even more grateful that I could do it for my country. And I really think that investing in education and preparing people for what's coming, and even preparing ourselves, that's something that I am striving to do every day, because I want to be very honest here. And I think we are all somehow scared about what's coming, about our, work in general. And I think we will have to reinvent ourselves very often. And though in the beginning I thought, I made so many changes along the way, maybe that's not good. But I've realized that I've built this muscle of flexibility, and I've learned to embrace change. And I think that's something so valuable mostly these days, because I don't think we will have like a career that's gonna look the same for 10 years. I think we will have to reinvent ourselves every other 2 years or even more.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on top of that, like me being an engineer, a software engineer, you would be sold this idea that your job is going to be secure forever. And we're at this point, like everybody's doing vibe coding everything. You can generate code by writing prompts. Of course, it creates a lot of technical depth. We can get in a lot of things like that. But the thing is, like, launching an MVP right now or a product, it's a commodity, especially in software. It's more about other underlying business things that happens. And before we jump into more like business intelligence and AI, if it was somebody who wanted to start just like you, deep diving into AI and try to build their own little programs, where would you suggest they start? Like, I know you have like a newsletter that we're going to talk about it later, but what would you suggest somebody that's like, okay, it's listening to you, it's understanding that AI is impacting us in terms of like life, career, and everything? Where should they start? Where did you start?
That's a very good question, because I felt like somehow I've started like so long ago and I built myself along the way. But I think you can start like by assessing how much you know about what's happening. And if you don't know much, try to educate yourself about it. Right now, even asking like ChatGPT what's going on around the world, you will have so many answers. There are programs. I mean, I'm gonna give as an example the program that I launched last year at Google, but I really think it's something useful. I'm not working at Google anymore, but I still believe it's a very good course. It's about AI essentials, and they just present you everything that you need to know, a little bit about prompt engineering. And I'd say after you do that, try to use AI, not let AI use you, if it makes sense. Okay. Because if you only use ChatGPT just to solve things and you are not using your own critical thinking, you are not using it to learn something, that's a trap. I think AI somehow it just emphasizes who you are. You still have to build some skills. You still have to be a better professional. AI is just gonna be there to enhance all those skills that you already have there. So that would be like, I don't know, in a nutshell, just like more practical advice, learning even the prompt engineering, learning to use AI in order to learn. There are, or even Notebook LM right now, you just upload the course and you can create a podcast about it, and it's more fun. I've done this. Or using it as a tutor, you want to learn something new, you just ask the AI, okay, don't give me the solution, ask me the questions, I'm going to reply, and just challenge me again and again with other questions so I can test my knowledge. So I think this is how you can use it in order to build new skills.
I think also it's very important to do critical thinking when you do prompt engineering. Like, and I want to say it's like the way you frame your questions or ask to the model, but also at the same time thinking deeply what you want to get outside of it. I think it's very useful because I know people that ask ChatGPT and they told me like, I don't understand how you're using this because it's not giving me what I wanted to give. And I'm like, how are you asking the question? What are kind of informations are you giving it? Because in a way, I feel like AI, it's at this point where it agrees with you. It mirrors you a lot. So you gotta, question it a lot till you get where you want it to be. And now that you're diving into business intelligence and AI, what do you think it's most exciting for you in this space?
I think we are at the point in which we are building all these tools because for sure, we want to automate a lot of the tasks that we consider boring or those that are not adding too much value to us. And in a way, I was always thinking like, why are we doing it? We want to have more time just to think better and faster. Well, that's on one hand. On the other hand, for sure, businesses want to increase their revenue as much. And that's fine. I mean, it's good to be aware of it. But I'm especially excited, and you mentioned it, about these AI agents, AI workflows, things that we can use to automate the tasks, some workflows, to summarize things, to get insights faster, to personalize our learnings. I was playing with a lot of like workflows lately. I think by the time you will post this podcast, maybe I will have even a more complex workflow, actually an AI agent build, because I'm quite excited about it. And for example, something extremely easy. I think I've built it like in a couple of hours, and I'm like very honest when I say that I also use AI to just make sure that all the steps that I'm like doing are correct, and I'm trying to learn while using the AI as a tutor. I'm trying to not reach out to someone else if I already have the tutor there and it's like free.
Yeah.
So there's this mini workflow agent. I'd say I just like give it like a voice note, I'd say, and it transforms that voice note into a ready to post, like, and I wouldn't call it article, it's just a post for LinkedIn or X. Of course, I'd say the magic is in prompting. So I think we have to learn a little bit of prompt engineering in order to get what we want, and we have to be very specific about what we want to get from the AI.
Yeah.
But for example, that's something so like simple to build, and yeah, you can literally use it. Now I saw so many people playing with this AI automations to create videos, which is super fun, and I really want to try that too. So yeah, I think this will impact businesses a lot, because I was thinking about it. You no longer have to outsource the work to other people. You can have your own AI agents team inside your business, so they will do that work for you. You just have to be very specific about the tasks that you want those agents to solve and to be able to build them.
You know, there's this thing, especially in the startup world and also Silicon Valley, like you have a bunch of programs and also startups that are selling you this idea of executive assistants. And I think we actually talked about it. Do you think it will manage to replace people in that area, like an executive assistant?
Right now, it's just my own view on it.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to replace the people, because for sure there are tasks that require some, I know, human touch. But for sure you will have one person who could do like the work of three personal assistants, because you will have your own AI. So most probably you have the human, and the human will have the agents, and will, like, give the agents all those tasks that are super repetitive, and will work only on those that require more, I don't know, mental power, I'd say.
And also, I want to say, like, the AI agent that you told me about at LinkedIn, sign me up. I can be a second customer.
Great.
It sounds pretty cool, actually, because everybody nowadays, you know, posts more consistently thought pieces. And I think that there is this theory at some point that the internet is going to be generated in content just by AI, which is kind of scary to think about. But also, I think it's going to bring out the more human part in us. Like, people want to see and have connections in person. So I wonder, what's your take on that? Like, do you think AI is going to make us less human, or it's going to drive us to more meaningful connections?
I think it's going to impact us the way we will let the AI impact us. It's also on us to decide. Because at one point I was playing with this idea, what if in the future we'll all have an avatar that will be there for us? We'll just prompt the avatar, write this, create this video, whatever. And then you'll have all the time in the world to do your own thing in your personal life and create those meaningful connections, you know? Like, go out there, like go to events, meet people in person, and you'll have your avatar, 1 or 100 avatars that will do the work for you. I'm still like playing with this idea with the personal brand, because I think it's already a very big thing, and I think it's gonna be bigger and bigger. And at one point, you know, I was thinking that maybe you will just ask an AI, tell me who is like the best in this thing, because I'm trying to reach out that professional. And that's why it's important to have a very good personal brand, because the AI will find you easier, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah. But, you know, this is something that most people would say that things that are going to happen in, 10 years. I don't think so. I think we are like so close to live that story. But I hope, that's my own hope, that we will just save more time for all those meaningful and relevant connections. And we will also have more time to focus on ourselves and grow ourselves as people in general, not professionals only.
I really like this perspective on the world. I feel like people right now want to do more in person and connect more in person. Like, I've seen a lot of B2B companies who are doing events in person to sell or create connections, because, you know, you need a community to thrive, and that has been a wonderful experience as well. I want to get to the next part, which is productivity. So Silvia here is one of the most passionate people I've met in my closer circle about productivity. So we usually geek out about these things and talking about experiments. Silvia opened a TikTok account when she moved to the States, and she experimented with a bunch of content, and you did a very cool series called Productivity Step by Step series on your TikTok account. If you were to sum up in 3 main lessons and to-dos for those who want to increase productivity, what would you say? They're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm procrastinating. I don't know what to do. My life is scattered. I would like to start somewhere. What would you recommend?
So I must say that was my very first experiment. I wanted somehow to not learn about productivity, because I was already like reading a lot about it.
Yeah.
but embody all those learnings. And when you teach someone, it means that you already know about the subject. And some learnings, for sure, I'm gonna focus on clarity, because that's also something that I am working on. How to explain, not working on bringing it into my life, but focusing on like getting clarity in what I'm doing. And I think if you have clarity, that's gonna beat even motivation.
I agree.
That's my understanding. And whenever I don't have enough clarity, I do a brain dump, because sometimes you have so much mental clutter and so many things that are happening inside your mind, and all those things don't let you like get into action. And just by doing a brain dump and just by looking afterwards at all those things that I wrote there and deciding, okay, this is noise and this is like real things that I really have to take action on, I think that's something that helps me and brings me clarity. Another thing that this is not something new. I think a lot of people like do this, but maybe don't say it like this. Think about your life in quarters. This is something that I have from my corporate life. That you have all the quarterly objectives. You evaluate every single quarter. You reevaluate in June, because it's the half of the year done. So I think it's very good and it's useful to implement that in your professional life, but also in your personal life. Because I was thinking, why is this so useful? It forces deadlines, and when you have deadlines, it forces action.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I have that in my life. And a third one, not really apply all those things. And this is something that's why I started that series, because I really wanted to apply more, not just read about it or listen about all those advices. Sometimes it's just press the button, like the timer on your phone, do a Pomodoro session, see if it helps you or not, get into action. Some people say that, oh, it's not helping me at all. How can you know if you don't test it? And of course, now I was thinking that you have people with ADHD and so on and so forth. I'm not talking about those situations. That's harder for sure. But in general, it's just easier if you just get into the action. And I have a note on my laptop if you want me to read it. I think this is a note for myself, but maybe will help other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I have this thing, like I wrote it for myself and it's here on my desktop. Becoming productive, it's an iterative process. You grow with it, and you can only do it by building your own self-leadership and agency.
I love that.
For me, this is like the reminder that the goal at the end of the day is to build the self-leadership and agency. And I will have days in which I'm going to succeed, others that are not going to be as good. But at the end of the day, I have to just keep playing the game.
Thank you for sharing this with me. Like, do you have this like a post-it, or do you have it written on your laptop on a post-it?
Exactly. I just do in Canva, visuals, and I just have them.
Okay. That's pretty cool. And as I've told you guys, like Silvia is very passionate about this. So I would like to know, how do you prioritize when everything feels urgent or impactful? And it seems like everything needs to happen now. And I ask this for myself as a startup founder. And also I relate a lot to what you say with clarity, because you hear all these huge entrepreneurs talking about the fact that you need to get clarity on what you want to do next. You need to put your heads down and focus on what's the most important part. So I wonder, how do you prioritize when everything feels that urgent?
It's something that I've learned recently, and I haven't included that in my series yet. Maybe I will do another one. Just using the word stop. I know it's silly, and I also thought that, oh my God, this is so silly when I heard about it, but it works. Like, I just say stop, and I don't know, you somehow stop the mental buzz, and I literally take a step back if something is overwhelming, like getting up and taking a step back and looking at the situation like an observer. Okay. Because you get out of your emotions. So and this attachment. Is also me also learning to manage my emotions, not running from them. That's also like something that I'm working on with myself. And there's also this thing that I am working on, to not only focus on the to-do list, but on the thing that I want to achieve, if it makes sense. And I know this is not new, but knowing something and doing it, it's so different. Like building the muscle, like building the habit of thinking about, okay, what's my goal here? What do I want to achieve? Like not focusing that much on the to-do list. And yeah, I think that that would be something, and this is something that I'm working on. And again, I'm going back to that brain dump thing because it's just the list that I'm doing to put there all the things that stress me or all the things that I want to do. But after I do that, I can decide this is something that I have to take action on. This is something that I just have to delete or sometimes delegate. Or these are the things that I can label them with like a pause, big
Okay.
pause. I mean, you don't think about this. You can like come back in 2 weeks from now and check again if you really want to do some of those stuff. But for now, it's not in your focus. And I don't know, it just releases some mental pressure, I'd say.
So you said basically practice the detachment from your emotions. Do you do it specifically when you feel very urgent, or is it something that you try to practice it every day to exercise that muscle of the attachment?
I exercise that every day, I'd say. I
Okay.
catch myself very often when I'm anxious about the things that I want to do. And
Okay.
that's when I really need to do the stop thing. But to detach from my own emotions, I've started practicing that daily. And I wouldn't call it like a meditation. Maybe it is for some people, but some
Okay.
breathing exercises, trying to be present. When I feel like I'm stressed, just to, it's that exercise, you just map things around you. Like, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you like sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
And
a very good practice.
it's very good. And sometimes, there was a psychologist recommending this. When you feel like you don't know, you just stop for a moment and ask yourself, what do you feel in that particular moment? And what are you thinking about? Because this is how you can catch yourself. Like maybe you have like a very bad internal dialogue that's not helping, and maybe it's adding more pressure. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'm doing
absolutely.
that. I know it sounds very philosophical, in a society in which we are so driven to act, and do a lot of things. These are maybe considered very, like, I don't know, fluffy things, I'd say. But I realized these are the basis. Like, this is the basis when you want to build yourself. And yeah,
I
I
don't think it's fluff. I mean, and I say that because I talk to a bunch of entrepreneurs every day, startup founders, and more than often, all ends up with a like psychological, philosophical question. Why am I doing this? I gotta detach myself from this. It's like this moment, it's not gonna rule my whole career, or it's not gonna be the killer of my startup. It's my energy level, my drive to do this, my mindset around it that I can pull it off. And that's why some people actually pull it off. And thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's very impactful. And I wanted to clarify, what is a brain dump? For people that listening to us and they've never done it previously, what is a brain dump specifically?
I'm gonna explain it super basic. I just take a pen and paper. Some people
Okay.
maybe find it easier to use like a phone or like whatever. And I just put there whatever it's in my mind. I don't know. I have to work on this particular project. It stresses me that I don't know. I have to work out. I want to work out 5 times per week, and maybe I don't have. I think I don't have the time. All the things that I feel that are there in my mind, and I'm not doing it to organize anything. I'm not doing it to prioritize. I'm just putting it there on the paper. And after that, I have like, I can look at everything that's there. Then I start organizing everything. Like, okay, this is important. Okay, now I can start planning. And yeah, these are things that I can just delete. I don't know why am I even focusing on those. Sometimes you can even identify some internal patterns that you have. And I'm going back to that like voice inside yourself. And but you see those patterns, and you can start taking action. My
Yeah.
understanding about taking action is that we people think that it's supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
But I realize that it's not easy to change a pattern that you have. And that's okay. Like being aware that it's not going to be easy. And so many times you won't succeed, but the key is to keep going. I think that's very important. Like, I would define it at not having the expectation of like having something so easy, like, oh, I'm just gonna change it like this. Maybe it's not gonna happen. Maybe you'll have to work on it even for a year.
Yeah.
It's a mental pattern that you lived with for like so long. How can you expect it to like change so fast? But yeah, I hope it answered your question. I think I
I
even like went.
I can see your thinking around experiments is in every aspect of your life, and I feel like that's what keeps you like a positive person. And I say that because I know Silvia personally, and I know what she's been going through and like transitioning and everything, because we can easily talk about transition, but it's not a fun process to go through. And she always kept a positive mindset around it, and I always appreciated that about it. So I wanted to go back a bit to focus, because we talked about focus to being critical to increasing performance. And what does your current system for organizing learning tasks or deep work look like? Because one thing that I personally struggle with is, because I'm the CEO of the company, so it means like I'm more of a generalist, especially when you're in early stages and you're not late stages to delegate. And I realize my time for deep work has narrowed down as window, and I'm trying to enlarge it, and I want to hear your thoughts about it.
I'm a generalist myself, I'd say. And I even remember when I worked at Go, I had so many calls during the day that I was struggling to schedule some deep work there. But it's important to put it in the calendar. I mean, for time blocking and for scheduling, I only use Google Calendar. That's the tool that I'm using. I mean, it works for me, and at least you have the overview of your
Yeah.
day. It's not like you get more than 24 hours, and out of those, you also have to sleep. So, yeah. And also, there's the saying, and I have to read more about it, but some people say, okay, you have 24 hours. Out of those, at least eight, go to sleep.
Yeah.
8 hours, you work, and for 8 hours, 8 hours, you should play. And when I say play, you decide what you want to do with that time. And
I
I
love
think it's
that.
like interesting to think about it. I use a Notion template that I created for myself. I mean, I keep there all my quarterly goals. But I'm trying to not put like that much pressure about like I don't know, keeping it very clean or something. I think the first quarter of the year I like was there every single day to like, I don't know, put a mark that I've completed some tasks or things like this. But I've realized that sometimes when you are like adding too much pressure, at least this is how I feel it. I feel that I'm not playful enough when it's too
Yeah.
much pressure, and I really need to play, because that's when I feel more creative, and I really feel that I get more things done. But yeah, Notion helps for me at least. And there's an exercise for the Tiny Experiments book, and I totally recommend it. It's super easy. It's plus minus next. When you
Okay.
evaluate your work, your personal life, your experiment, at the end of the experiment, I don't know, at the end of the week, you decide. You just look at like the plus, what went well, minus what didn't went like as well as you expected it. And next, what's your decision? Like, what are you gonna do next? What's changing? So yeah, I think that's also helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. And also, so basically having a system, you do like a brain dump, and then you separate it in tasks, you do quarters, you do time blocking on Google Calendar. And I wanted to ask you, because sure, we can book and track everything. Do you see a difference between being busy and being productive, and how do you stand on the right side of that line?
So I think busy it's reactive, and being productive it's more intentional. And for me, productivity, and I'm not saying this is like the right way to define productivity, but for me, productivity is synonym to self-leadership. That's how I view it. And that's why I feel that you are more intentional. You're more intentional about your life, about who you want to become, and things like this. So yeah. And I think what's also important for me is that what am I doing in between work?
Yeah.
I use exercising and sports a lot. I feel that whenever I like exercise, I just stop the overthinker. I don't have time to overthink, so I just end up focusing on the movements and all the things, and I just enjoy it. I mean, I really like to exercise. And another thing, because what I'm saying here, it's literally just the things that I'm doing in between the work. And at the end of the day, I've started this like 2 years ago. It's something like this, yeah, 2 years ago. And I think I only missed like 2 or 3 nights. Every single night, I do this exercise. It takes me like a minute or a minute and a half. I just put there at least 3 things that were like, that I'm grateful about.
Okay.
those things that happened during that day. I don't know, for me that was an exercise that helped me become like more grateful about the things that I have in my life, if it makes sense. I've realized that, I don't know, people, we lose things in life, people,
True.
we lose, I don't know, experiences, whatever. But after like maybe an intense period in my life in which I somehow experienced a loss, that taught me that being grateful is so important, and I wanted somehow to exercise that like
Yeah.
every single day, and I found that exercise to help me become more grateful and stay more in the present moment, not only think about the future. We all do that, we all want to make sure that the future will be bright, but sometimes we just forget that the way in which we build the future is by staying in the present moment. So yeah.
I love the fact that you look at life like a easy way to play, to experiment, and also to be grateful. I think like trying to focus on the good stuff, it makes you show up as a more grateful person, as a more positive person. And now I want to get back to a cool project that you started separate to your TikTok account called Silvias Experiments, where you document things you test. So tell us more about it, and also you'll see in the show notes a bunch of like things we talked about.
So I'd say this is just me trying to stay accountable to my own learning. And I realized that it's worth sharing, like, I don't know, all the experiences that I learned from. To be very honest with you, it's the result of that program that I mentioned about earlier, the creative cohort, because we were discussing there about the idea of learning in public.
Yeah.
And learning like with this idea in mind that you don't have to be scared to show your experience, even if it's bad or good. And that's what I want to do. And it's interesting because I'm not focused on the results in terms of like, oh, how do I have like a lot of people that reply? Do I have a lot of people that really considered that article like interesting? Yeah, I mean, in terms of results, I think I'm okay, but that wasn't my focus. Maybe it will become my focus in the next months. I don't know. I'm experimenting. Maybe that's gonna be one of my experiments. But right now, I'm just focusing on finding my own thing, and I'm doing it like without keeping it to myself, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I call it like experiments because it's about everything, things that I try, things that I learn about. Maybe I'm gonna share more, I don't know, my own reflections, who knows. But I'm like finding my thing.
What is interesting, and I wanted to point this out, is like in startup world we have this culture of building in public. It's more encouraged more and more. So you tell the world what you're building, but your take on it is learning in public, which I love that because basically it involves trial and error. It shows what it's like to be human, and it shows the process, which can at times be quite messy because you think you're just gonna take yourself from A to B, but actually you go from C, D, and then you go to B. So definitely I encourage people to subscribe to it and look over it. And I wanted to get to the last three questions that we have, which is like, how's your life since you moved to New York?
I think, and now that I think our discussion was a bit philosophical, and it's good that at least I can tell you that for me, the interesting part about New York, it was a very intense, I'd say, encounter with myself, if it makes sense, because I feel that I've grown more confident and I'm more courageous to write my own story and to tell it to the world and to own my own story, and not be afraid to just be who I am, and not be afraid to say that maybe in 6 months from now I'm gonna be someone else because I'm learning and I'm just showing all these learnings. And I know that at one point in my life maybe I will have even more clarity, and maybe I'm gonna have even like a project that it's very well defined. And right now maybe everything looks like super messy, and that's okay.
Yep.
And I think New York taught me that it's okay to also show that phase of yourself in which you are messy, but you are growing yourself into something that you look up to, if it makes sense. And that's why I'm saying that it's a very interesting, I'd say, encounter with myself. And it taught me that it's okay to take risks. I knew that it's okay to take risks, but New York, like, it's showing it every single day. And yeah, I think showing up for myself. Yeah, I realized that I went there alone and I started to feel comfortable, but also somehow like talking to you, like creating our tribe. It seems that as I don't know, I'm experiencing both, like becoming more and more comfortable with myself in a society like US where like individual it's so important, but I'm still keeping this very Central Eastern European thing, like having your own tribe and community. And yeah, I think that's fun.
And I love our little tribe. And I wonder how your process of deciding what's worth or not has changed since coming here. How do you look at it from a different perspective? Do you have the same perspective? Do you have the same process? How does that look like?
I am still thinking, I'm always thinking like, am I gonna learn something from this?
Okay.
Or is it gonna open new doors for me? And when I'm saying new doors, I'm not trying to be, opportunistic in any way. Like I'm just trying to understand if this new experience is gonna take me somewhere else where I'm gonna like
Yeah.
be a better person. When I'm choosing things, I'm also looking like, do I like it? Do I feel that I really have to put a lot of energy into it, or do I
Yeah.
already like that thing already motivates me a lot, and I already feel that there's enough energy for me to take out of that experience? And I'm also assessing my values always. I mean, I'm also comfortable with the idea like changing. I mean the list of like the values, some for example last year I have like I had courage top of the list. I don't know if it's like still top of the list, but I'm okay. That's just to like rearrange the values
You
there.
can switch.
But I'm
Yeah.
always like thinking that, okay, what I'm doing now, is it aligning with who I am, or at least who I want to become? Because that's also a thing that I'm like playing with this idea. You are someone and it's good to define yourself, but I'm always thinking, who do I want to become?
I love
Maybe
that.
that person has a different set of values, and maybe I should take these kind of actions in order to get there.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And also, just as a suggestion, maybe you can write in Silvia's experiments how you think about your values. I would love to dig into that. I think it's a newer concept right now that people put emphasis on, like what are your values? Like we talk about company values, cultural values, but it's like your individual values and how you relate to them. And in the end, I'm asking every guest of mine, please fill in the following sentence. To grow from 0 to 100, you need...
I just mentioned my value, so I'm gonna say courage.
Okay. So to grow from 0 to 100, you need courage. That's it.
Yeah, I think because you have to be courageous to show up even if you're not ready.
I love that. I love that. So, Silvia, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you got to the end of the show, just like, favorite, leave a positive comment, share it with everybody because we're going to have more guests. Thank you so much, Silvia. I'll see you in a year and talk about next
Thank
experiments.
you.